Hello and welcome everyone to the Healthy Heart Ambassador Blood Pressure Self-Monitoring Program Nutrition Education Session number 3. So today we're going to learn about chopping, preparing, and cooking food for better blood pressure management. Now that we're in Nutrition Ed Session 3, I'm really hoping that everyone here is learning different ways to add in heart-healthy foods on a daily basis, and staying mindful of which foods they may be consuming that can affect their blood pressure. And again, today we're going to learn about chopping, preparing, and cooking food. And I know we're in a virtual space right now, but I'd really like for you, if you feel up to it, to please email me and share any ideas or experiences you've had up to this point with changes that you've made surrounding eating heart-healthy foods. And I'd just like to let everyone know that from the next slide on, I'll be turning off my camera so that we can have a more seamless presentation and get through the material that we need to cover today. And I do have several other handouts that we will be mentioning and sharing throughout the course today. So as we move on to the next slide. So our overview for today, we're going to be talking about nutrition and blood pressure facts, taking a look at some food labels, and shopping for blood pressure friendly foods. We're going to learn some different cooking techniques for preparing foods for better blood pressure management. And we're going to be taking a look at some herb and spice pairings. So we will be sharing a handout for this later on in the presentation. Okay, and as we can see just in the next slide, hopefully you have noticed that the choices that we make about our food can have a direct impact on our blood pressure. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we really want to focus on taking the steps to eat a healthy diet and how this can provide long-term benefits for our health and for our heart. It is recommended that we eat a variety of foods from all the food groups. And so the first group that we want to focus on is how we can get more fruits and vegetables into our day. And then we want to look at adding in whole grains and low-fat dairy products, so low-fat dairy or milk and yogurt and cheeses. And we can't forget about poultry and lean meats and fish and nuts that all have omega-3 fatty acids and all kinds of polyunsaturated fats that are really good for our heart health. We also want to keep in mind choosing foods that are low in sodium, saturated fats, and trans fats. And we can do this by looking for the heart check mark on those food items. So we did mention this heart check mark last week, but what this means is that that food has been reviewed by the American Heart Association and it meets the criteria for lower levels of saturated fat, trans fats, sodium, cholesterol, and important nutrients that our body needs. Okay, so I just want to ask a couple questions of everyone just to get you thinking. So how are you doing eating a variety of food from all food groups? Okay, so just taking the inventory of all your meals and all your snacks, what are the primary nutrients or foods that you're eating during the day? And, you know, if your choices aren't quite making the heart check mark or including fruits and vegetables and whole grains and low-fat dairy, what are some changes that you might need to make with your heart-healthy food choices? Okay, next slide, please. All right, so we want to look at this slide. As you can see, this kind of breaks down where we are getting the majority of our sodium from. As we learned last week, we would get way too much sodium. The foods that we choose can have a big impact on the amount of sodium that we take in throughout the day. And by looking at our graph here, only about 11% of salt in our food comes from what we add. 77% of the salt we consume is added to food during processing. So this can make it really difficult for individuals to reduce salt intake on their own if they only consume high amounts of processed foods. Okay, so as we move forward in the presentation, think about some strategies that might work for you or strategies that you want to keep in mind as you think about planning and shopping and cooking meals. Okay, so some strategies, just to put that out there. So planning ahead is very helpful. Making a list before we go to the store and sticking to that list can be very helpful to help us reduce our dietary sodium intake. And then certainly adding in or eating fewer processed foods into our overall intake for the day. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we want to take a tour of the grocery store, okay, and we want to shop for some blood pressure friendly foods. So planning meals and making a list can really help us from straying from the list. Okay, so sometimes that's difficult, especially when something catches your eye that you really have a craving for, but it's not on the list. So that's why it's important not to go shopping on an empty stomach. So eat something healthy, heart healthy before you venture out, and you'll be less likely to buy higher fat and higher sodium foods. When we think about fresh foods, they definitely contain more vitamins, minerals, and fiber than their packaged counterparts. But if you do need to buy some convenience foods, make sure they're low in fat and lower in sodium. And look for that heart check mark. Sticking to the perimeter of the store, that's where we're going to find the fresh fruits and vegetables, our lower fat dairy items, and lean meats. The center aisles of the grocery store offer a lot of processed, high sodium, and high fat packaged foods. So thinking anything that's snack foods, any noodle mixes, rice mixes, anything like that, that all you have to do is either pop it in the microwave or pop it in a pan of water and voila, it's ready to go. So those are the types of foods that you just want to be mindful of. Certainly cutting back on frozen dinners, pizza, again, packaged mixes, canned soups or broths, and salad dressing. These foods often have a lot of sodium. And, also ready to eat breakfast cereals, right? We see, bran flakes, we see oat flakes, we see raisin bran, we see Cheerios. So kind of just like bread, they can also be higher in sodium. So really looking on the nutrition facts label or looking for that heart check mark for breakfast cereals are going to be a good way to know that they're heart healthy. Okay, so just to ask again, what do you think about some of the strategies that we've just laid out here on this slide? Okay, and which ones would be the most helpful for you to use? Okay, I know when I go shopping, definitely buying fresh and shopping around the perimeter of the store. I do look at labels on occasion, but generally if we're buying fresh foods, so fresh fruits and vegetables, they're naturally lower in sodium. So on occasion, I do look at the labels. Okay, so next slide, please. I know this slide has a lot on it, but don't be scared. We just want to kind of open it up a little bit more to foods to choose more often. So essentially when you're eating at home, or if you are venturing out Anything that's grilled or baked, like chicken or turkey, with the skin removed, is going to be a better option than smoked or cured meats, so such as bacon or ham, sausage, hot dogs, luncheon meats, scrapple, liver pudding, anything that's highly processed meats is definitely something you want to choose less often. Any type of fresh seafood or even canned fish, such as tuna or sardines. Again, as long as you're looking at the sodium content, or rinsing that food off to get the remaining surface sodium off of that food. Again, making lower sodium choices when it comes to canned foods, cheeses, and snack foods. I know some of the reduced sodium cheeses and even the reduced fat cheeses, might not taste as good as the fuller sodium or fuller fat varieties. But over time, if you continue to make these choices, your taste buds will get used to them. And if you go back to eating the other version, you can really start to taste the salt in those foods. Again, using plain rice, noodles, or pasta, not the quick cooking variety. Most likely they're going to have added sodium. Honing in on your soup making skills, so making homemade soup, maybe using lower sodium broth, adding in more seasonings and herbs to enhance the flavor instead of using full sodium broth, or adding in extra sodium. Okay. Any vegetables that are fresh or frozen, no salt added, or if you cannot find no salt added canned vegetables, rinsing those vegetables off to, again, rinse off that surface sodium, and then cooking them in plain water and adding maybe a little bit of pepper or lemon pepper, or any other seasoning or herb pairings that will go well with that food. And we'll look at those pairings in a few more slides. And again, using spices and herbs and flavorings, so getting unique and experimental. So there's a lot of herbs and spices out there. So whatever floats your boat, cilantro, parsley, garlic powder, or fresh garlic, onion powder, just trial and error with a lot of different seasonings. But watch out for soy sauce, ketchup, mustard, fish sauce, bouillon cubes, Cajun seasonings, and you might see that monosodium glutamate as a flavor enhancer, but most of it is strictly pure sodium. Okay, next slide, please. So again, when we look at shopping, we want to really look at the food label. If we can, it might make grocery shopping a little bit longer, but once you start to identify foods that are heart healthy and lower in sodium, hopefully the time in the grocery store can be reduced, but initially it can take a long time if you're reading the labels. So we want to watch for foods that do have higher levels of sodium, saturated fat, or trans fat, and this does include hydrogenated fat. These can all raise your cholesterol. So that's why it's very important to read the food label and determine not only the fat content, but also the sodium content of foods. So when we look at different food products, sodium levels can vary by several hundred milligrams in similar foods. So just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, for example, the sodium content in a regular tomato soup may be 700 milligrams per cup in one brand and 1100 milligrams per cup in another brand. So by reading labels and comparing sodium content of foods and then purchasing the lower sodium brand may be one strategy to lower sodium intake. It's important to understand different statements and claims on the food labels in order to have a better understanding or a more clear understanding of what you are buying. So when we look at some of the examples here, so for free, if you're choosing a food that's cholesterol-free, fat-free, or dairy-free, you're looking to avoid a certain dietary element. Okay, so in this case, sodium, fat, dairy. So if a food says it's a free choice, that's the best choice. It's not going to have any of those nutrients in there. Very low and low. So you might look for very low sodium, low fat, low cholesterol. Okay, so very low and low may be helpful if you are looking to reduce a certain element. And reduced or less. So if you see a food label that says reduced carbs, less sugar, reduced fat, these terms mean that the food has 25% less of that nutrient than the reference or standard version of that food. So if you see reduced sugar peanut butter, it means this version has at least 25% less sugar than its standard counterpart. But it's still a really good idea to check the food label to see exactly how much of each component, so fat, sodium, cholesterol, sugar, is in the product. Okay, next slide, please. All righty, so our busy food labels. Okay, so as we just talked about in slide number 8, you really want to take a look at fat, sodium, sugar, and serving size as and servings per container. Okay, so become a detective, or I like to say a sodium sleuth or a salt sleuth, and use the food labels as your clue. Okay, so we want to look at our amount per serving. So in looking at frozen peas versus canned peas, we're going to be looking at the serving size. So we can see that the serving size is the same for frozen and canned peas. Okay, a half a cup. But if we say, oh, I really love peas, I'm going to have a cup of peas, then you want to double the nutrients. Okay, so we're going to double the calories, we're going to double the sodium, we're going to double the fat, we're going to double the cholesterol. Okay. So again, when we look at our peas, which one is going to be a better option for us? The frozen peas or the canned peas? Okay, remember, we want to look at what the sodium level is in this particular food. So when we look at frozen peas versus canned peas, we're going to see that the frozen peas have lower sodium than the canned peas, and the canned peas pretty much have 3 times more sodium than the frozen peas. Okay, another thing that we want to look at too is that percent daily value. So it does help us compare products, and it gives us a good indicator if that food is higher or lower in sodium. So anything in that sodium row, we have our frozen peas have 5% of our daily value, and the canned peas have 16% of our daily value for sodium, just in that half a cup of serving. Okay, so that's another way to look to see. So if anything in that percent daily value in the nutrients that we're watching out for our heart health. So again, the fat, the sodium, the cholesterol, and the sugar. If that percent daily value is getting close to 10% or above, that is not the best choice for us. You want to look for that percent daily value to be less than 10%, but as close to 5% or 0% as possible. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so some different food labels here for some cereal. So which cereal is the healthier choice? And again, we're looking at fat, sodium, cholesterol, sugar, Okay, and also maybe another nutrient that we haven't spoken about yet. So as we look at the food labels for these two cereals, we can see the serving sizes are just a bit different. Okay, so we have one that's the mixed berry is 1 packet or 30 grams, and the frosted oats cereal from Jenny Craig is 43 grams. Okay, we want to look at our calories. Okay, calories from fat, total fat. So the total fat profile isn't too bad. The calories from fat isn't too bad. Okay, even the sodium, okay, isn't too bad. But we can see that the mixed berries cereal has 150 milligrams versus the frosted oats has 210. And then we also want to look at the mixed berry has potassium. So we haven't really spoken about potassium too much. We did mention it back in Nutrition Ed class number 1, how sodium and potassium play a role in maintaining our blood pressure. Okay, so we've got the mixed berry that has sodium. For anyone in the group that does have prediabetes or diabetes and you're watching your carb count for the meal, the mixed berry crunch has 15 grams of carbs, and the frosted oat cereal has 37 grams of carbs. Okay, so thinking about our carbohydrate servings. Okay, so the mixed berry has 1 carb serving, and the frosted oat cereal has, about 2.5 carb serving. Okay, so we want to look at that percent daily value, and we can see that, and then fiber. Okay, so fiber is 4 grams in the mixed berry and 2 grams in the frosted oats. Again, we're looking at sugars too, right? Remember we said we wanted to take a look at that. So for the mixed berry crunch, there's no added sugar, and the frosted oats has about 18 grams of added sugar. So what do you guys think the best choice is? And I know I'm not going to be able to hear you, but mixed berry crunch is the best choice. Okay, and we can see also the mixed berry does have some protein. Okay, so it has 11 grams of protein versus the 2 grams in the frosted oat cereal. And that program is going to keep us feeling fuller a little bit longer. Okay, and like I mentioned, that potassium in the mixed berry is also going to help reduce our blood pressure. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so getting on with food prep. Okay, so we've shopped for our food. How are we going to prepare it? Okay, so there's a ton of ways that we can prepare our food that's heart healthy, that's low in sodium, without losing any flavor at all. So you can flavor your foods with salt-free seasoning blends, fresh or dried herbs and spices, or fresh lemon or lime juice. Okay, so making that fish taco, squirting that fresh lime over a nice grilled piece of cod. Oh, sounds delightful. Cooking rice and pasta and hot cereal without sauce. So some of the recommendations on the cooking instructions say, oh, add salt to the water. Okay, don't do that. Okay, you can add plenty of other great taste without putting that salt in the water. And being mindful about rinsing canned foods. Okay, so tuna and beans. I always rinse my canned beans. I don't usually rinse my tuna. I squeeze the death out of the can, but I don't rinse it. And when I make tuna fish or whatever, I'm not a big mayo fan, so a lot of times I might just put a little touch or so of olive oil in there with some onions and some celery or some diced up green pepper. Works just fine. And then removing the salt shaker from the prep area and the dinner table. Okay, out of sight, out of mind. Maybe replacing the salt shaker with a pepper shaker or a lemon pepper shaker or some other type of shaker that doesn't contain sodium. Okay, next slide, please. And so here is some of the herbs and spices that you can pair with different foods. So I know this is a pretty, it's an okay list. There should be an attachment called herbs and spices. When you do log on to the site to watch this video, there should be some additional learning materials from the National Institutes of Health that really have a longer, more extensive list of herb and spice pairings and what types of meats they go best with. So you can see there's a lot of different possible combinations here. Just know that many herbs and spices are very versatile, and you can use them in many different dishes, many different ways. And again, it's all about not being afraid to experiment in the kitchen. Okay. So next, oh, and yes, the link, I'm sorry. So the handout, and it is included, is from the National Heart, Lung and Blood Institute through the NIH. And that is in the learning packet online. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so some other things that we can do at home. Okay, so, you know, you don't have to buy any sodium at all. You don't have to buy anything with sodium. Okay, we can use plenty of other spices and seasonings. But if you need a little bit, you know, don't forget to use some low sodium broth if you want to saute instead of using butter and oil. You can use water too. You can season it up however you want to. Okay, but you don't have to saute with just butter and oil. I do use low sodium chicken broth a lot for when I am sauteing stuff. Okay, I'm using lower fat substitutions in recipes. So sometimes you can eliminate almost half of the sugar and a third of the fat, or close to a half of the fat, and still have a favorable outcome with that recipe. Okay, so don't be afraid to modify recipes if they do call for lots of fat and salt. You can pretty much half everything, and everything will still come out pretty good. Okay. And again, don't be afraid to make substitutions. So again, just experiment. Okay, you'll find what tastes good or what your taste buds tell you, and if something tastes too bitter, or you're not going to use that particular seasoning or spice maybe with that particular dish. And when we look at, again, at substitutions for mayo or sour cream, certainly using Greek yogurt or smaller curd cottage cheese could be an option. And then if you have a higher fat meat, so whether it could be hamburger or it could be a T-bone steak or whatever, add in more beans and veggies. So look at that higher fat meat as a side dish rather than the main course. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so we've got plenty of cooking tools. Okay, we're armed and ready to go in the kitchen. So looking that you have a steamer basket, non-stick cookware. So I know that there is a lot of info in the news now about the types of cookware with the coating and what that could possibly do. So if you are using non-stick cookware and that surface has started to render itself, like getting a lot of scratches, or if you've noticed some of it flaking, throw it away. Okay, just go out and get a new pan, or better yet, use cast iron. So that's pretty much what I tend to stick to, is using a cast iron skillet. I have an 8-inch one, a 10-inch one, and a 12-inch one, and that's pretty much all I use. It's great. It goes from the stove into the oven. I make pizza in mine. I make all kinds of stuff. So cast iron is my go-to cookware. Steamer insert, yes, they come in so much handy if you have a Dutch oven or any other type of spaghetti pot for steaming veggies. It's my favorite thing to do, or I just stick my veggies in a microwave safe bowl and cover it with a little bit of wax paper. I get the same effect. So whatever works best for you. And then again, don't forget to experiment with seasonings, different spices, fresh garlic. So I know the garlic presses are really, really nice and convenient. Yeah, I have one. I pretty much use garlic every day. It's one of my favorite things to cook with. So give it a try. Get some new tools. So here you can see we just need a few tools to eat heart healthy and prep our foods. Okay, so next slide, please. We're going to look at a recipe makeover. So I know in this virtual world it might seem a little bit weird to do this. So we're going to look at a taco pizza. Okay, so what comes to mind when you think of a taco pizza, right? So I guess we'll go to the next slide and see what we have. All right, taco pizza, it's very common. Okay, we want to try to identify 5 modifications that we can do to make this a little bit more heart healthy, maybe on a Friday night, right? Okay, so we look at our ground beef. We look at our taco seasoning mix. We look at our pre-made crescent roll mix, or our crescent rolls. I'm looking at a can of refried beans, 2 to 3 cups of shredded cheese. Okay, we've got tomatoes, olives, green onions. So when we think about making over this recipe, we definitely want to see what we can change out or modify with using low fat-free, reduced fat, reduced sodium, low sodium for our ground beef and our taco mix, our crescent rolls, our refried beans, our cheese, and our black olives. So what can we do differently to make this more heart healthy? Okay, so there's 5 changes that we can make. Let's see, I'll give you guys a few seconds to kind of see which things you want to change up. Okay, and I'll ask that we go to the next slide so we can see what we've modified. Okay, so instead of using ground beef, we can use lean ground turkey. Okay, the taco seasoning mix, again, if we're looking at the nutrition facts panel, you can use reduced sodium, or you can use half of that seasoning packet. Or if you're wanted to get really creative, you could just Google taco seasoning with no sodium and see what some of the spice combinations they come up with. Okay, and again, with the Pillsbury crescent rolls, we're switching over to reduced fat. For the refried beans, hey, we're actually going to make our own refried beans. Okay, pretty easy thing to do. Okay, I've done it. It's awesome. Okay, leave them chunky. It's great that way. Using reduced fat shredded cheese or any other reduced fat shredded cheese that you like, or even less of it is another way to cut out some of the fat and calories as well. Can never go wrong with chopped tomatoes. And then just rinsing off your black olives, again, to get some of that surface sodium off to help reduce sodium. Or if you wanted to leave them out completely and add in something else, that would be less sodium, but maybe still kind of the same. Maybe, after it's cooked, forgetting the olives and maybe dicing up some avocado for some heart healthy omega-3 fatty acids. Okay, and then we're going to keep our green onions. So again, we can always increase the amount of chopped tomatoes, chopped onions, anything that's veggie wise, that's green and red or orange is always going to be healthy for our heart. Okay, next slide, please. So now we just want to kind of wrap up the main topics that we talked about. today. So I'll ask for the next slide, please. All right. So as we're closing out the nutrition part of this presentation, before we get into talking about our medications, think about how you currently prepare foods or shop for foods. Okay. Do you plan meals for the week ahead of time? Right. Do you make a grocery list? Do you stick to the grocery list? What items can you substitute to make your choices more blood pressure friendly? Okay, so what herbs and spices haven't you tried that you would like to try? Okay, looking for salted versus unsalted foods. So I can think of one thing I have in my cabinet right now. I like roasted peanuts. So salted versus unsalted roasted peanuts. Okay, or any other type of snack that you might enjoy. So unsalted pretzels, I think hard pretzels with no salt. Have some of that. I know it's going to sound weird, but having some unsalted hard pretzels with some carrots is a pretty good snack. Okay, and always keeping in mind reducing sodium whenever we can, even if we're using canned or frozen. So if the only option available to us is canned, open that up, put it in a strainer and rinse it with water. Okay, you can certainly get a lot of sodium off that way. And then think about how you currently prepare food at home. Do you use fresh ingredients? Okay, do you have fresh veggies? Do you have fresh meat? Okay, and then as we're preparing our food, what blood pressure friendly techniques would you consider using moving forward? Okay, steaming or baking or roasting or grilling, okay, versus frying or sauteing in oil or butter or lard. Okay. And when you think about your favorite recipes, what ingredients are in those recipes that might be contributing to higher blood pressure? Okay. How can those favorite recipes be modified to be more blood pressure friendly? Okay, so it might just be a couple of ingredients you might need to switch out and choose that lower fat, lower salt variety. Okay, next slide, please. So, and as I mentioned last week and the week before, we always want to talk about physical activity and the role that it plays in blood pressure management. So if we can have the next slide, please. Again, there is significant evidence that shows being physically active on a regular basis leads to a significant reduction in blood pressure and can improve other cardiovascular risks. Okay, so a physical activity every day, just think about the equivalent of a brisk walk. Okay, a brisk walk, not a stroll, a brisk walk. Okay, so where you're pumping your arms at your side, you're starting to sweat a little bit and get warm. Okay, that's how you know when you're working at that moderate pace. Okay, if you're just strolling along, not breaking a sweat, that might not have the cardioprotective benefit of being active that is going to help us reduce our risk of high blood pressure and other cardiovascular diseases. Okay, so if you can fit in 30 minutes a day, okay, it doesn't have to be done all at one time, right? You can have 3 10-minute segments, 2 15-minute segments, 1 30-minute segment, whatever works for you. Okay, so 6 to 7 days a week. So if you hopefully can dedicate 180 minutes to yourself and to your heart to become a better manager of your blood pressure. Okay, so that's all we want to ask, is that you get out there and move 30 minutes a day at a moderate pace to see improvements in your blood pressure and your heart health. Okay, and when you think about your day, what are some ways you can add physical activity into your day? Okay, so what are you currently doing now to be active? And what does that look like? Do you need to add some more minutes in? Okay. Do you need to take some minutes away? Okay. There's never too much of a thing as too much activity. Okay, and next slide, please. Okay, and again, just sharing the resources to support the claims that physical activity is good for us, good for our heart health, good for our mental health. So it is a good thing to be active. So I hope that you all are able to do so soon if you're not out and about already. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I'll thank you guys for this piece of the nutrition ed. So again, just think about some of the questions that were asked during the presentation today. You should have, when you get access to the recording in the learning packet, there should be handouts for how do I modify my recipes, a low sodium food shopping list, in addition to the herb and spice pairing list. Okay. So again, we'd like to remind you to continue to work with your coach one-on-one to track and monitor your blood pressure at home, and attend the office hours with your facilitator as you have them scheduled for that twice a month for those 15 minutes. Okay, so next topic we're going to get into is talking about medications and how we can manage them and work with our pharmacist. Okay, so we're going to talk about medication therapy management and why taking our blood pressure medications or our cholesterol medications is important. And we should be able to take them as prescribed. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so when we take our medications, okay, or do you take your medication how you should? Okay, has your doctor or your pharmacist told you, hey, you need to take this medication every day? Okay, have they told you you need to take it the same time every day? Okay, if you haven't had a conversation with your pharmacist or your primary care provider, why, or if you're not able to take your medications as they've directed, you want to let them know. Okay, hey, I forget to take it sometimes. I'm not used to taking my medication 3 times a day. I liked it better when I only took it twice a day. Can we go back to that schedule? Maybe medications are too expensive. I know we won't get into too much off topic, but yeah, I mean, medications are getting more expensive. Some medications are coming off formulary. And hey, what can I do to reduce my costs? Maybe there's a combination medication that you can talk to your doctor or pharmacy about. Or maybe you don't take it because you don't like the way it feels. Okay, maybe you're taking a medication and then you're given another medication to reduce the side effects from a medication. So if you don't like the way it's making you feel, talk to your pharmacist or healthcare provider about that. These things can impact our quality of life. It can prohibit us from doing the things that we want to do, which can lead to, us not feeling very well or added stress. And, at this time with COVID, we don't really need to be feeling that way. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so medication adherence. Okay, so this is the World Health Organization defines medication adherence as the extent to which a person's behavior in taking medications corresponds with agreed recommendations from a healthcare provider. Okay, so taking your medications as directed is very important for managing high blood pressure, managing cholesterol, managing any other chronic disease that we may have in conjunction with high blood pressure. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, And also, when we fill our prescription or have a new prescription for the first time and refilling our prescriptions, that all is part of medication adherence. Okay, so say you have you have a new blood pressure medication. Okay, you're filling it for the first time. That's great. You're adhering to the medication care plan outlined by your primary care provider. Refilling your medications, whether it is online or at a local pharmacy. They're keeping track. They're keeping track if you are taking your medications. They know when you should be refilling. So that gives them a good idea if you're taking your medications or if you're not taking your medications. Okay, so that's important to know. They will let you know. They should be letting you know, hey Joe, we haven't seen you in a while. Your atenolol, it's been 6 weeks since you refilled it. We give you a 30-day supply. Can you tell us what's going on? Okay, so that's very important. Okay, next slide, please. And again, taking medication the right way. Okay, so taking medication as prescribed, it's very important to your health. Okay, so not taking your medications correctly can lead to very serious health consequences and could possibly lead to higher medical costs. Many people do not fill their prescription or do not take them as directed. And what this does, this can cause the medication not to work as well, and it might even be harmful. So during this time of COVID-19, taking medicine correctly has never been more critical, especially for older patients and those with chronic conditions who are most susceptible to complications. Okay, so just want to ask the group, what might be a reason that you would not take your medicines as your doctor prescribed? Okay, I know we talked about a couple of them a few slides back. So looking at some solutions that you might want to talk with your pharmacist or your primary care provider about could be, pill packs, having all of your pills for a certain time of day just in one little bubble pack. Talking to your pharmacist or primary care provider about some prescription savings programs. Okay, we've all seen the little cards that look like a credit card, at the pharmacy, maybe even at our primary care provider's office. So GoodRx, NeedyRx, there's a lot of different prescription savings programs out there to take advantage of. Or sometimes even calling the pharmaceutical manufacturer directly. They may be able to provide some financial assistance with paying for medications, or maybe even be able to provide you some free medications. But really working with your pharmacist to manage your medications, that's what this medication therapy management is all about. So pharmacists are there to work with you, and they may be able to suggest an alternative, less costly medicine. But it is important that you take the prescribed medications, that you take the correct dosage, and that you take it at the right time or times of day as prescribed. Next slide, please. Okay, so hey, man, why do I got to take my medication? Why do I have to take so many of my medications? So the answers to those are it treats the disease that you have. Okay, so if you're taking metoprolol, or you're taking atenolol, or you're taking a statin medication, okay, it treats your blood pressure, it's lowering your cholesterol. Okay, hopefully by taking some of these medications, it makes you feel better. Okay, hopefully some of those side effects, aren't noticeable, but hopefully it's making an improvement in your blood pressure. So you won't be able to tell until you monitor. So that's why it's important to work with your coach one-on-one to continue to monitor your blood pressure. Again, 2 times with your coach, 2 times without your coach, because a lot of times you might not be able to tell if your blood pressure is elevated, just like you can't tell if your cholesterol levels are improving by taking your medication until it's time to get blood work done in that 3 or 6 month period. Taking medications, it does improve your health care. It could be keeping you, or it could keep you out of the hospital or going to the urgent care. And in the long run, it does reduce overall costs for your health care. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so what happens when you don't take your medication as prescribed? Well, if you're taking them intermittently, they may not work as well. And so you probably won't feel a lot better, okay? Your provider may not think it's working well, okay? So if you're not taking them as prescribed and you're not telling your provider that you're not taking them as prescribed, your provider might think that that medication's not working well for you, and they may prescribe additional medication. Okay, and that could increase your healthcare costs. Taking an additional medication might make you feel worse. Okay, and therefore it could lead to that you might be getting sicker and eventually may need to be hospitalized. So that's why it's very important to adhere to your medication therapy regimen as prescribed by your doctor or your pharmacist. Next slide, please. Okay, so here in Delaware, we do have medication therapy management program, and this enables you to get help from a pharmacist. Okay, they're going to work with your medical provider to help you with your medicines. Okay, so you can get a free personal consultation. So this is what is called medication therapy management. You're going to meet with your local pharmacist, and they've taken a special training in medication therapy management to work with people that have high blood pressure. A medication therapy management visit, you will meet with your pharmacist individually, so it can be either in person or over the phone. It could be even virtually like this. And they're going to be there to review all of your medications with you, how you take your medication. They're going to have time to answer your questions and concerns and work with you to create a personal medication action plan. If there are any questions, the pharmacist will talk with your medical provider. Okay, so there's that collaborative care piece. Okay, that's so very important these days. Everybody needs, all of your care providers need to be able to talk and work with one another to get you the best and most optimal care to take care of you. So the goal of medication therapy management is to help you understand all of your medications and the best way to take them so you stay as healthy as possible. Next slide, please. Okay, so with the consultation, again, the pharmacist is going to meet with you for free. They're going to provide a very comprehensive medication overview, go over the side effects with you if there's any interactions with some of your other medications. If there's any interaction with any foods that you like to eat and your medication, and if there is any issues with the drugs working against each other. So that's very important to know. And also if you're taking any over-the-counter supplements, to be able to tell your pharmacist if you are taking any of those, because they can also impact the effectiveness of many medications. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I'm happy to let you all know about the Delaware Pharmacists Society. They are pharmacists that are all throughout Delaware that are certified to provide medication therapy management for patients with cardiovascular disease or diabetes or both. Okay, if this program sounds like it might benefit you, or you would like to learn more about it, then please give the Delaware Pharmacists Society a call at 302-659-3088. And also on their website, it's Delaware Pharmacists Society. If you do an internet search, on their website, there is a form that can be filled out, and you can refer yourself. Okay, so this is a free program for anyone that's over the age of 18 that lives in Delaware that wants to take advantage of working with a pharmacist one-on-one to get a better understanding of their medications. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and there are some apps out there, so I want to thank Quality Insights for developing the presentation, but also having apps, free apps that can help you better manage your medicine. So if you do have a smartphone, you can use it to manage your medication. I do have a website. I think this might be something that we'll include at the end so that you have access to it, or it will be included as part of the learning packet as well, so that you can have access to the free apps. Okay, so I'm just going to make a note here that we need to add to that. We need to add to the learning packet if it isn't already there. And we'll go on to the next slide, please. Okay, and we talked about, yeah, meds aren't cheap, right? I know my parents, my mom, I spoke with her the other day, and she said that they had to get some medications refilled. And if they did not have insurance to cover their prescriptions, that the prescriptions her and my dad just reordered for the month would have been $1,800. So yeah, that's a big chunk of change, right? That's like a mortgage payment or apartment rent just for medications, right? So here are a lot of different sites. So findhelp.org, United Way 211. So again, if you're experiencing problems affording your medications, there's a lot of different ways to find help. So don't be afraid to ask for coupons. Okay, when you go to the pharmacy, or even if you call the drug manufacturer, if you know who makes your drug, call them up. See if they've got coupons they can send to you or email to you. Okay, ask your doctor to increase the prescription to a 90-day supply instead of a 30-day supply. Okay, this can also help with reducing copays as well. And also check with your insurance plan to see if a mail order service is covered. Okay, and this can prevent trips to the pharmacy. You can have everything either delivered to your home, don't have to run out, put yourself at risk. And again, it's going to be overall more cost effective in the long run. Okay, so visit some of the sites here. Okay. They are going to be able to give you some alternatives to some cost reduction resources. And then definitely don't hesitate to have that medication therapy consult with a certified pharmacist. Share with them what you're going through. Okay, they're there to help you find a solution to meet your needs. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so just, pledge to take your medications. So again, these are resources that we're going to include in the learning packet as well. So when you access the slide presentation, that you'll have these right there, that they can help you plan out to make a pledge to yourself, to your spouse, to your family, that you're going to continue to take your meds as prescribed by your doctor. So this actually, the Script for Your Future is a national initiative to raise awareness about medication adherence. Okay, so that's what this pledge is. That's what this campaign is. And if you want to participate in this, it is free. All you got to do is go to the website. They have a lot of easy to understand resources. You can get a wallet card. So if you're not liking to put medications on your phone, you can always keep everything in a nice little compact wallet card. You might just have to change, you just keep in mind that you'll have to change it if anything does change with your medications. So it's not a, backspace delete and type it in. It's more like cross it out, write it in, or maybe you would need a new little wallet card. Okay. This program also enables you to sign up for a medication text alert if needed, and creating your own personal pledge to take your medications. Okay, next slide, please. So I would like to thank Quality Insights for developing this slide presentation on medication therapy management. If you do want to learn more, don't hesitate to reach out to Robina Montag. Give her a shout, either phone or email if you have any questions. And I think the last slide is just a general overall thank you for participating, and our contact information at the Division of Public Health, Diabetes and Heart Disease Prevention and Control. If you have any additional questions about anything that was covered in the material today, don't hesitate to give a call or email. So I'd like to thank everyone for their time today in joining in for shopping, preparing, and cooking healthy heart foods, and also for learning more about managing your medications through your primary care provider and your pharmacist. So thanks everyone, and have a great rest of your day.